Hey everyone, Sean here, and today we are back for another tier list video featuring now Genshin as a Genshin player. I just wanted to do this because, I just wanted to express how I feel about these characters in terms of a tier list. And this is pretty much like based off of like their overall performance and stuff like that. Not so much their sort of character, lore, personality, all that stuff, right? This is all gonna be gameplay based, so very performance oriented, like I said. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate you guys. It just really supports the channel. So let's get right into it. And how appropriate, right? We are starting out with the main character or player character. In this case, Aether right here. So overall, I'm gonna try to be quick about it. Aether is just like a pretty good free-to-play option overall. There are some misses with Aether. I mean, or I should say Traveler. I'll get Lumin right here too. Basically, they're just like kind of like a preview for the Archons and all that. And they provide some utility to an extent. But once you get those characters, it's like, yeah, why play these characters? And there's at times where there are other 4-star units who will likely take their place as well. There are plenty of other 4-star units, I think, that could take their place. And although I would say that Dendro Traveler is definitely the best one out of them all, and then the second one would probably be Electro, and then probably Geo and Anemo after that. So, but basically, they're kind of like just there to fill in the gap until you get someone else, sort of thing. They're not bad, I don't think, over the years. I just think that, well, they provide only some of what you need, so that's just kind of what they are. I mean, it's the main character after all, so it's like you don't want to make them too powerful in a gacha game. Otherwise, like, why buy these characters or roll for these characters when you already have the Traveler, who's just insanely powerful? It is a gacha game after all. That's just how it goes. Okay, so up next is Albedo. Albedo is definitely a pretty good Geo team unit. When it comes to other team compositions, that could be kind of up in the air, but I would say from what I can observe, I think Albedo is an S. I mean, for the role he can play, I think he's definitely high up there. So I'll put him at S for right now. Maybe at A, but we'll kind of play by ear as we go along. Okay, so Amber, of course, people have been saying over the years, or players have been saying over the years, that she is a bad unit or whatever. She's like the worst unit. I think she's like considered the worst unit for a very long time. At this point, I think she's still bottom tier, but I don't think she is the worst. And you have to think of the circumstances, though. I mean, I did put her in D, but you have to think of the circumstances, right? Like, she is a story unit. You get her for free, all that stuff. And I think even with all the constellations, which can take a very long time, I think she's just very middle of the road, I would say, for what she can offer early on. I mean, early in the constellation, she just provides like a little taunt with the bunny, and pretty much that's it. I mean, that's all there is to it. Her ult is very dry in comparison to everyone else's. It can't be helped. She's a free unit along with Kaya and Lisa. She's just that kind of character. Now, you could say that even in that sort of role, maybe she is bad, but I don't think she's at this point the worst for what is given, I guess. All right, so Ayaka. Ayaka is definitely a very good DPS, cryo DPS unit, from what I can see. And yes, by the way, a disclaimer, I don't own all the units, but from what I can observe and heard from others, and from all the trials and stuff like that, all over the years, with the trial with the events, the trial versions and all that stuff, the character demos, and there are events where you can try out these units and stuff like that. From all those experiences, I can definitely feel like I can see that Ayaka has the S tierness in her for a cryo DPS unit. Her dash is very unique in comparison to others. She can just constantly apply cryo, potentially in a way, and her skill is pretty good. Her burst is just insane if you build her right on all that stuff. I mean, yeah, as long as you have the decent artifacts, I think she is a pretty good DPS unit, and I mean, of course, S tiered, in fact. Barbara, good old Barbara. I would say she is probably C. She is pretty good early on, like in the game, right? When you start off playing the game, but over time, yeah, there are definitely other units that do her role better. She does have a burst heal, so that's pretty handy. But when it comes to her skill, you know, it applies Hydra on yourself, so it can be very annoying. And overall, I think her healing is just alright. Now, you can build her to be that meme damaging unit. I mean, you do have to go out your way to do it, but then again, I believe it's possible for many other units anyway. So Barbara was just funny because she was like one of the only healers at the time, I believe, for early on in the game, or when the game launched. But otherwise, I think she's just kind of just a C. Maybe even like a low B. But for a healing unit, I think she's okay. But there are other units that kind of, I would say, fulfill her role nicely over her. So, but we'll keep her at C for right now. Maybe things will change in my mind. But Beto, I would say either low A or high B. I mean, she is a fun unit. She can dish out the damage if the cards are played right. But her ult doesn't, or her burst doesn't work with everyone, unfortunately, just because of the circumstances set up for some people's bursts. For example, like Raiden, right? One of the most powerful units, one of the most used units as of now, doesn't work with Beto's burst because it only works with normal attacks. Raiden's burst, when you use their normal attacks, they're considered burst. So it doesn't proc Beto's burst, so that's pretty much why. So unfortunately, I had to put her down to B. She would be a solid A if, that works. Well, of course, though, I mean, as a 4-star unit, not gonna really, hit like a truck in comparison to 5-star DPS units. That's a given. But even then, for her role, could be better to some degree. She does have the parry mechanic, which is nice, but it does require timing. And there are plenty of other units who do have similar mechanics, but you don't really have to think about it. So in a sense, that does hold her back a bit. It does take a little more skill and timing and such like that. So that's why she is lower tiered in that sense. Now, is she more fun in that sense? Sure. I mean, people really like her design and all that stuff, and the actual timing of the mechanic could be fun in that sense, but why do it when there are already other units that do it better than her, in a sense? And I know I keep saying that, but that's just what it is. Alright, anyway, so Bennett, one of the only 4-star units that are as absolutely S-tiered. I don't even know if I should put him over her or whatever, but because he's a 4-star unit, but he's so good for what he's doing. I mean, he heals, he provides attack boost or damage boost, and then if you C6 him, he provides pyro boost. He's just great. I mean, C6ing him does limit him a little bit, but if you're really into pyro units, I mean, you could do it, and there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. But for right now, I mean, for me, I only have him at C5 still. I still have a C6 ready for him. Just because I feel like with the 5-star units I have, when it comes to Pyro, I mean, it doesn't really necessitate that for Bennett to be more specific or, sort of narrow down his role to that degree. So I would like to have him C5 for right now. Just because C5 definitely works for everyone else, right? So, for right now, I mean, unless there's going to be more Pyro DPS units over time, then it could justify it, definitely, for sure. But for right now, there are not that many to justify it. So right now it's C5, but no less he's S tier, just because he provides the damage, he heals, and he can dish out damage himself if you build him. If you decide to build him more of like a damaging unit, it's possible. Like I said, you could do it with Barbara, you could do it with Bennett, and yeah. So I think it's pretty funny. He can definitely fulfill a number of roles for sure, and he does them very, very well. So Chung Yoon, definitely a lesser unit when it comes to what he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be a crowd DPS, but overall, I definitely do see him more of a support unit. I mean, he doesn't dish out all that great of a damage, I don't think, anyway. And he can provide some attack speed boosts, I think, after some constellations and some cryo stuff. But other than that, I think he's just a B unit. I mean, I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's definitely, you don't really see him in like metas for some reason. I mean, like I said, you can build him to be doing some like decent damage, but there are definitely other units that do it better, so even some 4-star DPS units do it better than him. So yeah, that's why I would like to just put him at B. Maybe I don't know if he's better than the Travelers for his role and stuff like that, but because the Traveler can kind of like switch around elements and stuff like that, that's what kind of ups him in that part. Anyway, D-Luke is definitely somewhere in A. I mean, he could be a low S, but right now A, because all these other 5-star DPS units have come out with these like extravagant kits, and D-Luke is very straightforward. There's nothing very special about him. He did come out as one of the first like 5-star DPS units with a Claymore. And Claymores are pretty slow and stuff like that, and his kit is just kind of old, very, very just straightforward. And the fact that his burst sends away enemy units, which is kind of counterintuitive because you do have to run after that to hit him, right? He doesn't have any other long range attacks, so it looks cool, don't make me wrong, but it doesn't make sense for the burst to send him that far away from him, unless you want to switch after that. But his burst allows him to give him constant pyro application for a number of seconds with his normal attacks and everything, and his skill can apply pyro and all that stuff, sure, but it's nothing to really write home about at this point. So, but he's not a bad unit if you build him right, of course, with solid artifacts and stuff like that. So that's why I put him at A, personally. Fiona is another A unit, I think, in my opinion. She's like really good for a 4-star unit who could provide shields. She can heal and cryo application, and also, not to mention, if you C6 her, she can boost elemental mastery, which is now very important for today's sort of quote unquote meta, and provide a decent amount of energy in comparison to another cryo healing unit on this list here. So I would put her definitely at A. I wouldn't like say she's better than D-Luke just because these two are different units and stuff like that, but nonetheless she is A. Okay, so Official is actually like up here early on in the game, like when the game came out, when there was like really nothing going on with like the enemies and the Spiral Abyss and blah blah blah. Like she did like good amount of damage. But as the game evolved, I think she kind of goes into high S. I think she fulfills her role really, really nicely. She's definitely a good sub DPS for sure, but you can build her to be, again, another damaging unit for sure. Of course, if you have solid artifacts and a weapon, of course. But yeah, her skill is definitely valuable. I mean, she provides battery for people's like bursts and stuff like that, and just application of electro. And basically she's just a good turret unit, I'd say, who can also provide some damage herself if you do want to take that route, of course. So for the role she's fulfilling, I think she's doing it nicely, in my opinion, and she still has a place to be relevant, in my opinion. All right, Ganyu. I would say Ganyu would be right here in the S tier. Maybe like maybe lower on the lower side of the S tier units, but it's just because as a DPS unit, most of her damage, of course, comes from her charge shots, and of course, charge shots are pretty slow. So you gotta build her right. You gotta have the right weapon. Otherwise, yeah, she's still good, but when it comes to like timed events that require speed, it definitely puts her, meh, bit of an unfavor or less. She's less advantageous there. But if you're there just to kill the boss, then yeah, she definitely has her place as a DPS unit. But she's definitely really good as a sub DPS as well. If you don't have the right weapon for her, she can flex into a nice sub DPS unit. I think she has a taunt for a skill. She can lure enemies to her flower or whatever, and also her burst provides a good amount of cryo and of course some decent damage as well. And if you can set it up right, she can just constantly put out the burst, and that is always really good too. So, but of course, like anything, if you have the right artifacts, she can dish out the damage as a DPS unit, but she definitely is useful as a sub DPS as well. So she has that flexibility, and she can fulfill both of those roles nicely, especially if you have the right weapon. So that's Ganyu for you. On top of that, she's very popular as a waifu and all that stuff. So I guess there's that bonus. All right, Hu Tao. I think she is pretty much right here, like along with Ayaka. I say she's like kind of tied up with Ayaka. What's cool about Hu Tao is that you can just rely on her skill, and that's where most of her damage really comes from. You can build her into a nuke, of course, with her burst, but it does take some time to set up. So that's why you're just better off using her skill, which does, yes, require a risk, which is basically taking some chunk of her HP, and then her damage goes up when she's when she has a half amount of HP left. So and even lower, I guess. So it does require some things before she can unlock her full potential, but when she does unlock her full potential, she can dish out some great amount of damage. It's crazy, especially when you have like reactions going on with vaporize or melt or whatever. She can hit really hard once those circumstances are right. But yes, it does require a bit of a risk. That's why you gotta run like someone like a shield unit, right? So it does require a little bit of setup. And as for Ayaka, I mean, there's nothing you're really risking. So in that theory, she is a better unit in that department. But when you need a pyro application and damage, she definitely does fulfill that situation pretty well if you know how to play her. Jean, I think Jean is a pretty good healing unit as a 5-star. I don't really know if she's better, I guess in a sense better than Fischl, or Fischl is better than her. I mean, overall, she's a healing unit in my eyes. She can provide some damage as well, but how I use her is a healing unit and also a animal unit as well, like an animal support unit. She can provide the swirl. She can provide that swirl resistance shred, with the Veterescent artifact set, which is, all the more helpful, of course. And her skill can be fun to use. So, I mean, and it works sometimes. It's a gimmick. It doesn't really work on all bosses, of course, so that's why that lowers her in a sense. But she does have a burst heal, and she can provide some sort of buff to the team if they're in a circle, right? So that's why she fulfills a number of those things quite nicely. Unlike her sister, her little sister Barbara. So yeah. Yeah. So up next we have Kaya. I would say Kaya is up here. I would say he's a little more useful than Chung Young. He provides the icicle ring thing for his burst. So that is helpful in the sense, and for some setups it can be fun. Like if you want to use him with like Sayu, and then if you want to set up with Xiangling as well, along with another ring sort of skill that could be of like a meme thing, but it does kind of work in a sense, so that could be fun. Other than that, I mean, he's not meta breaking or anything like that, but he does provide that sort of specific spot in that role decently. So I would say that's what I would say he is a B somewhere. So I'll put him right there. Catching is definitely A. She was like kind of lower in a sense because Electro has had its problems, but because of Dendro, it definitely does put her up higher. Maybe even like maybe somewhere around where Diluc is, right? Would she be better than Jean? I don't know, but I'll put her right here. She basically is a great driver for Dendro stuff, right? So hyper blooms and all that stuff. I think she does fulfill that nicely. Her kit doesn't revolve around elemental mastery, unfortunately. I mean, she is an early unit, so that she's a straight attacker. So there's nothing she runs off of any bonuses. So that's why she's a definite A. But yeah, she fulfills her role more nicely now that Dendro is out, and Electro as a whole got better because of Dendro. So that's why they were kind of stuck in this weird spot for a long time. So they already had this game plan, and that's why they didn't buff characters like Catching or whatever immediately. Klee, I would say lower A, just because she kind of her role is kind of just weird in a sense. I mean, she is DPS, but it's like, why use her when there are plenty of other DPSs that aren't as clunky as Klee? She is fun, of course, but she is just clunky as all hell, and so you have to rely on her charge attack, which takes some stamina, another resource, right? And her skill is okay, and I would say she would have been higher up if her burst worked more like a sub DPS or support burst. Because why not have the flower thing for everyone else too who wants to attack? That would have been kind of nice. They were trying to make her into a main DPS material, but I think they kind of failed on that part in some departments. And yeah, she's just clunky, slow, but if you're willing to put up with that, she can provide some good damage. But it's like, at this point especially, there are plenty of other units that do it better than her. Kind of strange of how it turned out, but I guess that's Klee. So anyway, we have Lisa right here. Again, I mean, she would have been C, but because of Dendro, I think she's lower B. Her burst is really the only thing useful, I would say, for Dendro stuff. But when you unlock one of her passives, she does provide some defense shred, so that's pretty nice. But overall, I mean, that's from her burst though, so she's very burst reliant. So that means she does quite take up like energy and stuff like that. She requires energy to just even get going, and her skill takes some finesse, or it takes setup and takes time. It's just especially when you're running on time, you don't really have that luxury with how you want to set up with Lisa. She's good. I mean, of course, she's fun off field or outside of Spiral Abyss and stuff like that. But when there's a lot of combat events that require time, like they're basically time attacks or you're running on time, it really doesn't make her all that useful other than her burst. But then again, it's like, if there's just other units that do it better than her, and but you can make her work, of course. She's better just because of the Dendro stuff, I in my opinion. But because because of how she is with the Dendro blooms and stuff like that, her normal attacks can't even reach because they're too high. So I wish that her hitbox worked better so that the seeds can proc with her normal attacks, but it can only work with her skill, I think. But that's kind of clunky. And then also, of course, her burst, right? But yeah, of course, you gotta stay in a circle to make it effective. And And of course, her burst I think has some high energy costs. I think, if I can remember correctly. Either way, I think she's just kind of like okay, so that's why I put her in B. Mona. Mona is definitely either A or maybe S, but for right now, an A for sure. I don't really. I've been playing this game since like close to launch, right? Pretty much around launch month, and actually still don't have Mona. Like I've rolled so many other constellations for these other characters like in the standard banner, and yet I still don't have Mona. But from what I can, when I was able to try Mona in these trial events or whatever, she's good. I mean, I think she's good. You know, for hydro application and all that stuff. She provides some good like boosts and stuff like that. And so, you know, I think her role is pretty decent and all that stuff. And you know, as a 5-star unit, of course, she can do it, right? Of course. So hey, I would put her in A. Kind of funny because she's right next to Visual, and you know they're kind of like friends and stuff like that, closer friends than ever. But yeah, I mean, she has a taunt. She can apply a Hydro with her dash, kind of like with Ayaka. So she does have some utility in the exploration world side of things. But when it comes to actual combat, especially Spiral Abyss, yeah, she can carry her weight as a Hydro unit. But you know, I haven't really like pushed her or had the opportunity to really push her, so that's why I only put her in A. For right now. Ningguang. I think Ningguang is like a low A. I would rather use Ningguang over Klee, so that's why I would put her a little higher than Klee. But she is a 4-star unit, so she won't dish out as much damage as some 5-star units, but you can build her like a missile launcher, like a bazooka, and that's really fun. I was able to achieve some numbers with her, but that was like early on in the game when there was like really not much like units or enemy units back then ish. So maybe that's like not saying much, but yeah, I mean I think she still has her place as a Geo DPS unit, but you know she is 4-star, so that's why I gotta put her a little high up in Klee because she is a little more fun to use than Klee in my opinion. So in that sense, I guess she's a little better in my case anyway. Noelle. I think Noelle is just right around Ningguang-ish. She is a 4-star Geo DPS unit as well. Overall, she is DPS. I mean, I thought she was a healer, but she's meant to be an attacker. But she does also heal with her burst, so that's actually kind of nice. I think she also heals with her shield as well, with her skill, but I could be wrong. But she's like a pseudo healer, a secondary healer, definitely not prime healer material. But she's kind of built to be an attacker and all that stuff. So yeah, you know you can make her work. She was pretty good at some point, but definitely fell off because of all the other units that were popping out. And so I would say like low A. I mean, her kit is it's pretty straightforward. She does provide a shield, all that stuff. So she does have some utilities over some of these units too, definitely. So that's why I put her in like a lower A side. I was gonna say Klee. Chi-Chi. Oh man, I would say a C at best. I mean, she can heal really fast. You can provide the talisman tag or whatever, and that does heal the attacking unit, right? Whoever's attacking, they get healed. So that is useful there, but she doesn't provide energy, which is sad. I mean, why? Why is that a thing? Why has that not been fixed? Isn't that something considered broken in the worst way possible? All right, sorry, I had to take a call. Sorry. So basically, she is a healer. She can heal, but she really doesn't provide anything else. Doesn't shred. Doesn't really do all the other stuff. I mean, yes, you can alleviate that somewhat with artifacts, but she doesn't overall provide her own little kit to do anything else really, because otherwise she just heals, and that's really all there is to it, I think. Maybe provides some sort of buff, but otherwise it's very small and doesn't really do a whole lot in comparison to what other units can provide. So and plus her kit doesn't provide any energy back, like it doesn't provide any energy particles, so that's why she definitely is falling into the C tier. So I mean, can you beat Swallow-Abyss with Chi-Chi? I mean, if you want to make a challenge for yourself, then sure. I mean, she can work in that sense, but you know, there's definitely other units who can do it better than her, unfortunately. I mean, poor Chi-Chi. That's all I can say. Razor was definitely kind of up there. I would say he's a little higher up than Chung Young as a DPS unit. Maybe even like more up here, maybe. Or even better than Beto. It's because he's definitely easier to pick up, and he can provide some deal of damage for a 4-star unit. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely make him work. But yeah, I mean, at this point, he definitely is outclassed, but he's a definitely high B if you're willing to put yourself in a 4-star situation kind of thing. Like if you want to run a 4-star team, then yeah, Razor can kind of shine in that sense. But again, you know, at this point, there are plenty of other units who can fulfill it as well as him, if not better. Sucrose, she can definitely provide good crowd control. Maybe not the best, but definitely is up there nonetheless. I would say a little more useful than, I mean, it's hard to say, but I'll just put her in A. I mean, not really trying to say she's like better than some of these units, but so yeah, basically, I mean, good crowd control. She's a 4-star unit. I mean, to an extent, she does provide element to mastery, which is again more important than ever. So they definitely bumped her up a little bit in that sense too. So that's why she definitely is for sure A tier. Child, I would say like somewhere in S or somewhere between S and A. Let me just put it right there. I mean, he definitely does have potential to be an S, as long as you do have the right setup and stuff like that. But his kit is a little weird, so I would say like at least lower there. I'll be generous and then give him the S, but definitely more on the lower side of things, just because how his kit works. I think he does have a long cooldown on his skill, so that's why, yeah, he kind of miss out on some DPS. But whenever he is damaging, he can hit hard potentially. But there are definitely other units that just have an easier time dealing constant damage over Child. So, but hey, when you need a really hard hitting Hydro DPS, he can fulfill that role for sure. Venti, I think Venti is still absolutely an S. Really good crowd control. He does have some flaws at this point, sure. Is he worse than Kazuha or a little less better than Kazuha? I mean, it really depends on what kind of crowd control you want. But it's really good. It's still, I mean, whenever I use him in like the trial events, it doesn't really take much to build him either. So in that sense, I think he is an S, definitely. So I think that's why I would still put him in S. I think he's still worthy of that sort of tier, because he can still do it nicely, despite having some units maybe in a way do it better than him. He does have some clunkiness to it because you have to run back, and then you have to activate the burst, and then the burst can pull up the enemies a little too high for some units. So he does have a little less flexibility in that sense, but whenever it does work, it really does work well. I think so. Especially with the swirl and all that stuff, definitely is great there. So that's why I would put him in that department. Xiangling, definitely a good support DPS or sub DPS pyro unit. That ring, man, that Inferno ring or whatever, is really good. But because she relies heavily on her burst, that's why I can't really completely put her up on high up on the S tier list or whatever. But I mean, whenever you can get that going, especially when you have the Raiden national team, yeah, it definitely just still does work to that degree. So I'd still consider her somewhere in the S tier. Definitely A plus, like absolutely A plus. Especially once you get her C6, she is definitely really good. Do you need it? I mean, kinda. I mean, it's just bonuses on top of bonuses. But yeah, definitely if you have C6 and all that stuff, that means her burst lasts way longer. And of course, not to mention, she provides pyro damage buff as well. So that's all the better as a support unit. Xiao, I think, is definitely up there as a animo DPS. His gameplay a little hard to tolerate because of the jumping and stuff like that. And some people do get motion sickness and stuff like that. It does do a number on you if you constantly use him. But hey, I mean, for the damage that he can provide, he's pretty good up there. So that's why I still put him in S. Somewhere in this area. So more S units, absolutely. S tier unit, right behind Xiangling, or even ahead of Xiangling. I mean, especially if when you have Sacrificial Sword, or even the Vravonia Sword, you can definitely provide energy for the whole team, or he can provide energy for the Hydra units. I mean, he's been really good. His burst lasts really long. Hydra application is great. I mean, whether his swords are doing damage or not, his application is really important, and it just works for like most units, except for the exception of one. And yeah, so that's that's he's been up there. He's been up there for a long time. I think he's still gonna be there for a longer time, even with Fontaine out. But we'll see about that. But I think he definitely is an S tier unit. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't try to argue like, oh, is he better than Xiangling, or is he worse or whatever. I mean, that's for you to decide what kind of reactions you're looking for. But hey, I mean, from my experience, yeah, he's definitely really useful. All right, next up we do have Xinyan, another infamous unit who still to this day has not been fixed, and I don't think at this point definitely not gonna happen. So I gotta make her second worst for right now. Definitely in the D. Her shields don't hold up too well, and really she doesn't really offer all that much outside of being a somewhat decent DPS unit. Her scaling is just all kind of all over the place in a way. Like, okay, you want to increase her physical damage, or do you want to increase her defense, right? It's like, why can't you just have defense based off of her physical attack or something? You know, that could have been, or just off her attack. I mean, that could have been kind of useful in a way. You know, why not that? You know, and just make her multipliers not too crazy, but as a 4-star. But it's just a weird lopsided sort of scaling for Xinyan, and again, her shields just don't work all that together for a shielding unit. So that already is like a pretty bad thing. Her burst can do damage, so that's why I put her over Amber's. But you know, Xinyan is a unit you can still pull and not be happy with it. So that's pretty much that. My boy Zhongli. Of course, I still would put him in S tier. He still has the best shield in the game. Still makes the game a lot easier than most units, right? Most other units, and Zhongli absolutely does it still. Like at C0, he's still like really good. You know, that's the kind of unit he is. Like you just need to put all HP percentages on him for artifacts, and this bad boy is ready to go pretty much. And if you want to make his shield even more beefy, then you can throw in the black tassel, and it's all HP from there. His meteor, his burst, I mean, it's a meme, kind of like like Bennett and all the other units that you can build damage for. You can make him into a damaging unit, like I've been saying, right? But he's primarily a defense unit, built, based off of HP. Really good, really good. Shield. I mean, he was one of the only units that got buffed like outright because he was apparently really bad or something. There was enough complaints, especially from the Chinese side of things, to make Zhonglei better. So they buffed him, and he's just like one of the best units ever, if not the best for his role. So I mean, kudos to that, I guess. But I hope they, I wish they did the same for, the rest of the units that do need help, like these, like these 3, for example. Well, maybe 2 at least. Anyway, especially Chi-Chi, because come on, man, the energy. Why? Anyway, I mean, I guess you could fix that with constellations, but still, it's like that's like a standard thing for all units. It's like, why? Anywho, back onto here, Rosaria. I would say, I mean, as a sub DPS, I'll throw in her in bottom A-ish, maybe mid A, but somewhere in A, I guess. Not much to say. She provides the her burst is what's really helpful, of course, just like a number of units, but she still has some utility with her skill. I mean, you could use it as a dash to go in on the opponent. It gets sometimes can get behind them, and that does extra damage. She can raise crit rate, which is an important stat for a number of characters, of course. And yeah, so she does have better utility than, let's say, Lisa, for example, who also relies on her burst quite often. But at least her skill is more useful in that sense, and her normal attacks is just with the polearm, so nothing wrong there. So nothing much else to say other than that her bursts, I would say, in my opinion, is a little more useful than Lisa, for example. But yeah, I mean, a cryo unit too, so there is that. Speaking of cryo units, we have Eula, who is, I would say, definitely high A or really low S, just because of physical damage, and they have not been treated well in that department, unfortunately. So for right now, I would probably just say high A, just because if you can make it work, it does work, but physical damage isn't really all that useful in most places. But you can do it for fun, and it does a lot of damage, sure, when you do all the steps right. But there's already plenty of other units who can do just well with their bursts as Eula, and it just doesn't take much to set up, or doesn't take as long to set up. And if not that, like their bursts are more useful than hers, more ways than one. But a respectable unit as a DPS unit with the Claymore and all that stuff. But it's physical damage, and hopefully they get better treatment over time. I mean, I know they just released Mika, but Mika needs to be C6 in order to even be reasonable, I would say. So again, I think the mistreatment on physical attackers is kind of apparent here. All right, next up is Yanfei. I would say Yanfei is pretty good as a 4-star DPS unit, so I would say right up here, I guess. I mean, maybe right behind Diluc. I mean, it might be even better than Diluc, depending on how you build her. In some ways, so it really depends on how you build her, whether sub artifacts or sub stats and stuff like that on her artifacts. More things have to line up, yeah, for her to do more damage than Diluc. But for 4-star. She does pretty good damage, and pretty fun at that too. So, I've had my time with Yanfei, and I'd say she's pretty respectable as a 4-star unit. Kazuha, absolutely. Man, I don't want to say, like, obviously he's a support unit. I mean, I guess you could build him as a DPS unit, but he is so useful to me that he's definitely high S tier for sure. He is so useful. His suction is really good. His crowd control is pretty good. His burst is pretty good, like really good. His skill is, if I haven't said already, is really good. I mean, he's just good all around. So that's all there is to it. He's an excellent Anemo unit. You can even regard him as like the next Anemo Archon, in a way. He's Japanese Venti, and I guess you could say, because the Inazuma thing. If you don't have Venti, but you have Kazuha, I mean, you're kind of set. I mean, his skill is what sucks, and Venti, I mean, his skill is okay, but I say Kazuha is way better in that regard. So there you go. Especially if you have C1, you can do it again, after his burst. So he's definitely kind of crazy like that. So I would put him definitely right there. Yoimiya, she definitely is somewhere in S tier, somewhere. Good DPS unit, especially if you have all the right parts. Rapid fire DPS action, right? She's not like a nuke by any means, but she just chips away so fast. I mean, her burst is kind of like whatever-ish. That's why she's not exactly like super high up there, but it is useful for the rest of the team if you want. It provides extra damage for the rest of the teammates, and the fact that she can't proc her own burst effects, which is kind of strange to me still. But if you want to get around that by just using someone else on the team, then I think that's fine. I actually use Ganyu and Yoimiya together, and then whenever I have Yoimiya's burst active, I switch over to Ganyu to proc the melt reaction, so that's actually pretty useful. And then whenever that goes away, I switch back to Yoimiya and all that stuff after I do all my other rotations. So Yoimiya is great. I think she's a great unit. I don't think there's really inherently wrong with her. She definitely just relies on her skill, which doesn't take too much resource. It's just using the burst, put up with their cooldown, which is not that long. I mean, by the time you get to the rotation, I mean, she's ready to go. So I think she's a great unit all around. Of course, not the greatest, but she's great. Just nothing wrong with that. Sayu is a bit of a gimmick. Great for exploration, but as a combat unit, kind of altogether. But in some situations, she is useful. That does put her down lower. But so I would put her either in lower A or high B, just because her exploration is really useful. It's nice. You have a taxi, right? You can move through the map quite fast. It's fun, but she is a fun unit, you could say. I mean, if you have a number of like ring bursts or skills active, right? Like if you have Xiangling's Inferno Ring or Kaya's Icicles and Cookie's like ring, right? Grass Ring. You can have a fun time with this. So she's a fun unit in that department. More useful than exploration, which is more than half the game, I would say. She covers that pretty well. So okay, another Archon right here, the Electro Archon. I would say right up there along with the rest, with Zhongli's, Kazuha, blah blah. I think she's like a unit that will last a very long time because her main thing is that she is a damaging battery. Like she not only dishes out the damage, but she recharges everyone else's bursts. It's such a useful thing. And even if she isn't putting out enough damage at some point, she's still charging up everyone else's bursts, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's such a universally good thing. So that's why I think she'll stand the test of time for a long time. I don't think she's going to get power creep that much, maybe damage-wise, but utility-wise, I don't think so. I mean, especially her skill is also that useful, too, with the electro application. So, in that sense, too, if you want her to make her to be like the one who sets off the hyper boom and stuff like that, you could build her to be the elemental mastery unit. But for the most part, yeah, you do want to build her with energy recharge in mind. She is building off of energy recharge, so that is her overall kit. She is the Archon of recharge, right? Recharging. So I mean, yeah, as an electro unit, she's literally a generator. She's just that powerful of a unit. So like, right, and of course she has all the looks and everything, right? So that's also a bonus on top of her usefulness. Her usefulness is not going to go away for a very long time, point being, just because she is covering something that is universally important for all characters, which is the elemental burst. So, unfortunately, she can't synchronize with every single unit, with like Beto, for example, right? With the normal attack proc thing, that's an issue. But other than that, that's she is just universally good altogether. And funny, Kujo Sara is right after her, and I think she's only useful in niche situations. That's why I would put her either like low A or high B. I mean, she can buff, people's attack and stuff like that. That's kind of cool and all that stuff, but it's kind of cumbersome to use with her skill and stuff like that. And it only lasts for like what, 6 seconds, but you can't make it work. I mean, attack is a universally good buff as well, but you'll have diminishing returns when your attack is too high. So there's that. But when it comes to electro characters, right, she's really good at C6 because she buffs their crit damage just straight up, which is another universally good stat. So it really depends on how you build teams and stuff like that, but it does take some thinking to make her really work. So she's not universally all that great, but when it comes to electro units, absolutely, she's like that sort of unit, specifically made for units like, well, Raiden Shogun, right? Any other electro DPS who dare come out, who wants to get their damage numbers up there in the screenshot or something. So yeah, she is useful in that department. Very niche, so I would say low A, and high B. For whatever role she's intended for, I think she serves it. But are you really going to use her every time? Not really. So Kokomi, I think Kokomi is like S. I think she got some undeserved hate, including from myself. I was kind of guilty of that just because her crit damaging thing was a real turnoff in the beginning, but it all makes sense. She's a healer at the end of the day. I think she's a really good healing unit. I think she's, I guess, the best in that sense. Then I would say a little more useful. Well, it's hard to say, right? I mean, I guess to say who's better than who, even though they're like doing different things. Like, she's a healer. Why would I put her on top of some of these damaging units, right? They're DPS. Anyway, I think she's just very more than respectable overall. I think she applies good hydro. Maybe not as good as Xing Chu, so that's why maybe she is lower there clearly. But she heals really good, and then her burst allows her to heal everyone over time every time her attacks hit. So useful in that department. She's a really good healing unit. She also just puts out flat damage, but it's something as she heals. So definitely more useful than a number of healers in the batch here. But yeah, just a good, respectable 5-star altogether. I think she definitely got more love over time, but whenever she came out, yeah, definitely that hate was unwarranted overall in the long run. So I think she definitely deserves an S somewhere. Aloy, kind of a clunky unit. I would say maybe low B or something. Although I've not used her, but from what I can see, she's a free unit. Do I really need to even put her on the tier list at all? I mean, she's a free unit, 5-star and all that stuff, but she really isn't all that useful either. You can use her. She's not broken or anything like that, but it's like, well, why use her other than that she's free? Well, I guess for people who missed out, you really can't get to experience her, so that's why I would put her somewhere in this area, somewhere in B. Hard to say exactly where, because she is supposed to be DPS, but I'd say maybe sub DPS at that. But for people who were able to get her, she was free, so in that sense, I guess she's fine. All right, Toma. I would say Toma is a low A. I'll be generous with Toma just because he has saved my ass a couple of times here and there in the Abyss to cover like the 2 Pyro, 2 Hydro teams, and he provides shields, and they're quite durable. It resets every time you attack, so that's helpful in that sense. And his burst is okay for that. You have to be up close, but it's useful when you have melee units. If you have like a bow unit, then it's not as useful, but you still have a shield, so that's still helping out there. And he's one of the better units to proc Burgeon, which is another bloom sort of reaction, which is kind of useful, but not as useful as Hyper Bloom. So he definitely got higher up there. Otherwise, he would have been a high B, but I say a low A, just with the Dendro update, fun enough. So he is a useful combat unit, more than someone like Sayu, for example. But hey, I mean, to each their own, I guess. But I say he's around here. Maybe I guess a little more useful than Kujo. Now that I think about it, because she is more niche than Toma. Toma is a shield unit, so how can you turn that down? And if you build all HP on him, his shield is pretty decent. Maybe not the best, but it's still a shield. I mean, and it's still helpful, more than helpful than Shinyan, that's for sure. Okay. Arataki Ito, definitely somewhere in S. Is he more useful than Child? That's hard to say, for example, but for a Geo DPS unit, absolutely. He just dishes out the damage. He is so fun to use and satisfying, especially when you have the mono Geo team. Especially with Goro, he is definitely high up there. But because you have to build more of a specific team around him, that lowers him a little bit, but he still dishes out a lot of damage, so yeah. Definitely at least A for sure. So I don't know. For me, he's an S tier just because of the damage he can dish out. Goro, definitely more towards A, but maybe like more like right here, just because like the niche role that he serves, it's really good, but outside of that, like what else can he do? But that one job he has, he does it really well, which is to be a part of the Geo team. And he boosts people's defense, which could be useful for someone like Noel, of course, if you don't have Arataki Ito. And the rest of them, right? Along with Zhongli with the Geo damage, all right? Albedo, all that stuff. Like they all work together pretty well, I'd say. So. I forgot. Albedo, yeah, he does also go. He is based off of defense, right? And he also helps with elemental mastery as well. So yeah, so definitely somewhere up there in S for sure with that. Shinha is also a really niche unit. Would I put her in S? That's kind of hard to say, right? Because she's supposed to be like helpful for some cryo DPS units, and I'm sure she serves that really well. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll be generous and have her right there, like lowest of S's, I guess. But definitely high A for sure, just because of the role she serves. I don't think there's really any big issues I've heard with Shinha. I don't have her, unfortunately, so I can't really like hard confirm that she is S. Exactly where, but like I can only imagine that she's good for what job she's given. She's kind of like a Goro or Kujo Sara, but with obviously Shinha serves the cryo part of it. So, and even that like how long it lasts and stuff like that, I think it's much better as a 5-star, of course. So I say I'll just leave it at that. Yunjin is definitely a little more niche too, but again, the role she serves is pretty good. Once you get C6, you do have a higher attack speed and also better normal attack as well right off the bat. So you don't need C6 for that, I don't think. So she's really useful for units like Yoimiya, for example, and who just love to attack fast. So she could be better overall in the long run, right? Because more and more DPS units have to be a little more creative, right? So they might have to play around with like normal attacks, attack speed, and all that fun stuff. So she might be useful there potentially. So for right now, whatever role she serves, I think she serves it pretty well. So I'll put her along with like Rosaria and stuff. So yeah, I think she's like kind of around there. Yai Miko definitely somewhere in S. Along with like Child, Ito, blah blah blah. But because she's a little more useful when it comes to like Dendro stuff, definitely up there too. And she goes off of Elemental Mastery bonus even before, so it was kind of helpful. But now it's like even more helpful than ever because of the Dendro stuff. So definitely, I say, is she better than Yoimiya? I mean, the roles are a little different because she is more sub DPS material, and then Yoimiya is more main DPS material. So I can't really say, I guess, who's better and all that stuff. But she's an S. I think she's an S. She's really good. Her burst does real good damage. Her normal attacks proc the seeds, unlike Lisa, so that's definitely better in that sense. Her skill is really good. It just puts down damage constantly over time. So that's really good in that sense. I mean, she's not definitely like the highest of S's just because her skill requires some time to set up. And, she doesn't have any like resistance to knockdown or anything like that. So it can be frustrating to set up at times. I've been a victim of big bosses hitting her down while she's setting up her totems. It's pretty annoying. And yeah, that's just kind of the nuances you have to put up with Yoimiya. I mean, not Yoimiya, Yai Miko. So, Miko is just like, or Yai is just like, takes some time to set up. It's not that long, but there are moments where you do get stomped out of your setup and stuff like that, which again can be pretty annoying. But it's worth it though. It's worth it in the end, definitely. I would say when it comes to Ayato is definitely up there. It's hard to say who's better when it comes to Hydro DPS, right, versus Child. But as someone who does have Ayato, I do like him in that department. Unfortunately, I need to have like his 5-star weapon in order to really like reaffirm like where he is. And so I haven't been able to really unlock his potential because I only have like 4-star weapons and a lot of stuff. But if you just want to kill boss and stuff like that, you can. If you have like the right artifact build and all that stuff, he definitely works. I only have the Glad pieces on him for right now, so I'm not sure how he is with the that one artifact set that works with normal attacks and then just procs the 70% the extra damage. I forget what it's called. It's the teal colored one. I forget what it's called. You get it also from like the Vermilion domain. I forget. Anyway, I think that one works best with him just because he normal attacks all the time. And if you can't make that work, he definitely is up there as a S tier or as a 5-star unit. And the only thing that holds him back, which is like kind of specific, is the number of ping you have in your connection. So because if you have like slightly bad ping, it can even like erase 1 or 2 of its attacks. So that does make a difference in some situations. So that unfortunately holds him back in that sense. So that's why, yeah, not the best S tier or best 5-star unit in terms of damage, but hey, if it all lines up, he definitely has a spot there. Elon, oh man, she is definitely S tier support. S tiered sub DPS. I mean, in terms of exploration, she's up here, right? But in combat, hard to say. In terms of damage, like she's definitely is like up here-ish, right? But in terms of application, Hydra application, he does take it, right? But because she has more check marks, I would say she's more up here. If we're gonna compare sub DPSs, right? She is great for exploration. She's does good damage with her burst, and even her skill does some pretty good damage too if you have the right reactions and all that stuff. So she's definitely really good, really useful, and yes, and a great combat unit in this sub DPS department. So on top of the Hydro application, she has served me very well. I recently got her C1, so it solves her energy recharge issues, and so. Yeah, she does require some building in that department too, in the constellation department. But once you get her C1, she's definitely up in the S tiers somewhere. Kuki was here, right? Kind of just there for the electro heal, right? Maybe somewhere here, right? Right. But because with Dendro and how things have been going, oh man, she shot up so high, in my opinion. She has been serving well in my Hyper Bloom team, featuring Kokomi, of course, Kuki, some whoever your Dendro unit is, and whoever wants to be in your 4th slot. So it's like such a pretty flexible team. But as long as you have a Hydro, Electro like Kuki, and a Dendro unit of sorts. She definitely has been serving that department very well. She's a Hyper Bloom unit altogether, who runs off of either HP or Elemental Mastery bonuses. And she doesn't. I guess once you have her at C2, was it? Then you're definitely set. Like you're definitely set because her skill lasts even longer. Like I think by 3 seconds. What she's already doing, it's very useful, right? Especially when I have other Dendro DPS units and she helps proc the spread or quicken or aggravate. So that's also really helpful there. So Kuki has definitely shot up. It's definitely one of those like units that came out too early, but then just shot up. Over time serve her pretty well. I say even more useful than Eula in that sense, because she's physical DPS. But anyway, Hazel, not right there. I would say actually like up here, maybe even past these units potentially. But he's fun. I like him, and his skill can do over 100k damage. It's just that crazy. His burst is okay. It's whatever. It's kind of just there for you to use, but it's still helpful in a sense. And but overall, you rely on his normal attacks and his skill. So that's just kind of the unit he is. And I would put him a little higher up if he's an animal unit that can like suck people in and then proc his skill. Like if he was sucking while he was like what do you call it? Using it, like charging up his skill, that would have been kind of like funny, like kind of like what Jean is doing, right? But the suck comes from his burst, and it's really not that great. So that's why I'll put him in A. You know, a respectable A for sure. Tighnari, I would say Tighnari is pretty useful as a Dendro DPS unit within the standard rotation. I'd say around here, right? Along with the rest of the boys right here. That's pretty funny. I don't know about like up here ish, but he definitely is an S tier for a Dendro damaging unit. Now he is, yes, another charge shot unit like Ganyu, but because you can build him over time with all the standard rotation stuff, right? He definitely can climb up there. Once you're C2 with Tighnari, you're pretty much set. I think all the other ones are bonuses, definitely. I mean, potentially, right? He could be up here with Ganyu and stuff like that. I'll leave him up here, I guess. I guess to be fair, they're both charge shots, and they can both potentially do a lot of damage and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, I guess well, she's up here, I guess. Oh yeah, because I said she is also really good as a sub DPS. I mean, TNRA sub DPS. I don't know about that, but main DPS unit, yeah, definitely. So he's a little more focused, and Ganyu is a little more flexible. So that's why. But yeah, he still dishes out pretty good damage. Cole, I would say somewhere in B tier. Probably like right here. Once you have C, I think it was like C2 or something like that, where when you use a boomerang, she has like the dendro ring that pulses and stuff like that. That's a little more useful. So that pushes up a little bit. But yeah, to me, she's still useful than like some of these units, right? Some of these other units. So that's why I would put her just right there in B. Kind of like a low B-ish. Dory, I have not been able to use her all that much, but I really don't see that much of a use for her. She does heal, but she only relies she relies on her burst. She's another burst heavy unit. Kind of like with Lisa, but at least she heals, so there's a little more utility with that, and her kit is a little more built and updated. That's why I would say she's up here. Maybe am I 100% sure she's better than Lisa? I guess I can't say since I haven't used it all that much, but you know, she heals, she can do some interesting things. So I don't know. Maybe somewhere up here for sure. But she is B for sure. Nilo is I say somewhere in S. I mean, when you are willing to put up with her very niche specific builds, she can do some damage. So I would say around here, somewhere with like Arataki Ito and stuff like that. The fact that you have to build her into a specific team, but when you do, I feel she can do just great damage, just like all the other units. So more on the lower side of the S tier, but still in the S tier. So it's like you're a great unit. There's nothing wrong with just being great. Okay, Sinnoh. I'm not gonna put him in C. I would say either somewhere in A, high A, or really low S. I mean, I guess it really depends on how your team is built, I guess. But he was kind of disappointing because even though his burst says that he's resistant to interruption, that doesn't happen. He gets interrupted quite a bit. So that needs to get fixed. So until then, I have to put him only in high S, or high A, excuse me. He does respectable damage, and he's great for Hyper Bloom and stuff like that. If you want to build him into a more Hyper Bloom specific unit with all Elemental Mastery built at hand, which yes, he does have bonuses based off of that. But just because of his clunkiness in that sense, in that department, with him getting interrupted despite the description, he's a high A for sure. So, all right, we're kind of getting close. Let's see. So Candace is right now around here-ish, just because I feel like she came out a little too early. Kind of like with Kuki Shinobu. I think once more units pop out, she'll be more useful over time. Kind of like what happened with Shinobu. Shinobu was like very like whatever, you know, kind of like with Candace. But in some builds she can be fun, or some some builds and some teams she can be fun, but you have to kind of like big brain it and do some research and all that stuff, and so just to do the same amount of damage ish with the S tier units and even A tier units. Her sort of support utility is like alright, so that's why again I would put her somewhere in B. But I feel like someday she will be better. Alright, the other Archon for right now. I think that's all the Archons. She definitely is up here. Definitely up here. Absolutely as a support unit. I think she even can work as a main DPS unit too, or sub DPS unit. Oh no, she is a sub DPS unit. What am I saying? But as a support unit, yeah, definitely. But because she sticks Dendro on a number of units for like a long time, as long as they don't die, of course. But she's just great. I mean, her burst is really cheap to activate, low energy cost, right? And her skill is just pretty fun to use. Although when you're on controller, that definitely lowers it a little bit. But when you're on a mouse, that's no problem, right? You can just scan it real quick with your mouse, you know, all that stuff, all that jazz. Other than that little caveat with the controllers, she is really good. She just provides that huge boost with the elemental mastery, which is, you know, she's the elemental mastery goddess, right? That's definitely what she's built for. On top of the Dendro stuff too, so she definitely is really high up there because of those things. And Dendro application, of course, yeah, that's definitely up there too. Her attacks are kind of useful in that sense because they, yeah, you know, they come out from the ground, you know, that sort of stuff. They have pretty good distance, I guess, or range, decent range, I would say. But you're really there for her skill and her burst, of course, and they serve their purpose really well, especially once you get C2. That's just a bonus because that's a defense shred, kind of like with Raiden's C2. I forgot to mention her C2 is just so good. It's just like you kind of beating the game at this point, like 100%, no matter what. Anything beyond that, of course, that's just bonuses on top of bonuses. But right now I only have her C0, but she serves her purpose really well for both of these two. I have Nahida at C1. Funny enough, I got lucky on that one. So that's just more damage, more bonus damage and stuff like that. She even supports different kinds of things depending on what kind of team you have. Like, so if you have like, you know, more pyro, it'll do this. If you have more hydro, it'll do that. You know, that sort of stuff too. So a little more gimmicky in that sense too. But it all just serves as a bonus on top of that, of what she does. Procs Dendro damage as you attack them with the mark on them too, and like and on top of that, more Dendro application. So yeah, so her, Kokomi, Cookie Shinobu, perfect trio in my opinion. That's a pretty good trio to really go with. It's been helping me out in a number of Spiral Abysses. And even for the person in the 4th slot, that's just a bonus. So I put in like Kazuha, sometimes Ganyu, for example, because for Frozen, blah blah blah. Anyone can get in there. So Nahida is so good for her role. It's ridiculous. Layla, yes, Layla, kind of slipped my mind for a little bit. I actually think she's kind of somewhere in A. Her shield is really good. I think she's supposed to be the second best shield in the game. In fact, like just behind Zhongli, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll put her right here. She's more useful than like Toma, for example, in terms of shields, and she can help apply cryo. So that already on paper sounds pretty useful. So all you have to do is just build her with HP, and that's it. That's, you know, you're really there for the shield, really. At least for me, anyway. That's how I use her. Her burst is kind of just there to apply cryo. So she fulfills the cryo shield sort of role now. So if you wanted to have like two cryos and 2 whatever else, she definitely can fill in that slot and provide the shield on top of that. And I think her shield lasts a decent amount of time too. Especially once you build more constellations, it's just bonuses for her. But the fact that you have a cryo shield that's pretty beefy as a 4-star, that of itself, I think is I think it deserves some praise. Wanderer, I play with Wanderer in the trial, and yeah, I think he definitely is up there as a DPS. Probably a little more useful than someone like Ito, for example, because you don't really need to build as a specific team. But if you have, well, funny, the next unit is popping up uh soon. But Wanderer, once he gets like someone like Farazan to buff him further, it's just like bonus damage. He just shreds quite a bit. He's pretty good at it. And his burst is just like more damage, right? I don't know what his bonuses are based off of, if he has any of those, but he's just a good animal unit altogether. I would put him up there with like Shao or whatever. So yeah, I don't know why I put him up there. Actually, he should be like a little more back here, but I guess it doesn't matter. Like I've been saying, like an S is an S, right? But there are some exceptions where it's like, oh, some of these guys are S plus even, God tier even, literally. All right. Anyway, Wanderer, he's up there. He's an S. Farazan, I would make her, I guess, an A, just cause she's kind of like an animal Goro, and she serves her purpose just like Goro. But although, I don't know if he can heal, or she can heal. Excuse me. Goro can heal after C4, so it's like supplemental healing. It's not like he's not like primary healing material, but he can also help generate shields as a Geo unit, so that's useful there too. Farazan does provide some sort of like crowd control, but not as great. She's just primarily there to buff people like Farazan or Hazel, for example. So that's her sole purpose. It's kind of like Kujusara and Goro. But she definitely does become more useful once she gets all her constellations. So she's like another constellation heavy unit, unfortunately. So that's why she is still lower A. So I actually let me put up Sucrose like a little higher up, honestly. But yeah, maybe next to Layla. And let me push up Kujusara a little bit here. I know I said it doesn't matter, but sometimes I don't know. There are some exceptions in some between. I kind of wish they were like separated by like sub DPS, DPS, and like support and whatever, but it is what it is, I guess. With this tier chart here. All right, Yao Yao. Yao Yao is at least somewhere a lower A for right now. I mean, funny enough, I do have her fully constellated or constellationed, if that makes sense. She's C6'd. And overall, I think she's all right. I mean, she's definitely like lower A somewhere because her healing is pretty good. But I haven't found like that footing with her just yet. But I think she's respectable as a 4-star unit for a healer, Dendro healer. So you could put her in some teams that are like gonna be like really useful, but she's still kind of new to me. I haven't haven't really gotten a hold of her altogether. Like she does have some weird scaling, like her attack the attack bonus allows her to do more damage, but at the end of the day, don't you want to make her like a healing unit? So maybe some healing bonus multipliers might have been nice, or her HP multipliers might have been nice to do damage, but maybe that would have made her a 5-star at that point. Maybe. I put her somewhere in A though. I mean, she's already more useful than some units in all these like BT units for sure, and you know, she has her place as a Dendro unit as well. So there is that. Speaking of Dendro units, holy god, Alhaitham is super good. So I'll definitely put him up there, along with like Ayaka, for example. And I think like he's just really good. Like especially once you get his weapon at R1 even. If you're lucky enough, he can dish out. He can just shred. His burst, like the way you use him does require some work and time to like get to know him and how he like rotates and stuff like that. But depending on how you want to use his burst, like you can use his burst to just get more of his shards back. That's more where his like damage comes from, is the shards. It's hard to maintain like the 3 shards constantly. So what you kind of want to do is burst, attack, and then once you see his 2 shards or whatever, then you charge attack to generate one more shard, and then you can continue one more time as the 3 shard damage, right? And then once your shards are done, you rotate him out. You switch him out from to your next unit. Once you get his like elemental mastery and all that stuff, like and all the artifacts and all that stuff set up, his DPS is just so ridiculous. It's wrong. It's so wrong. It's right. Kind of. I mean, maybe it's my personal bias. Because I have him at C1, I have his weapon at R1, and yeah, that just helps him shred so good. Like he's always like in my 12th chamber or 12th floor, what do you want to call it. Like he is just that guy, So, but other than that, he's just he is just DPS. He doesn't support his team. He doesn't provide anything else but himself. So he's a pretty selfish unit. And yeah, but his luckily his you can rely on his skill to do the damage because again, most of his damage comes from his normal attacks anyway. With the 3 shards, or just any shard in general, because as long as you have dendro damage going, he's good. He's definitely good. So right now, for me, Alhaitham is my best dendro damaging unit, or just best damaging unit altogether, I'd say. So he's not a nuke, but he's a shredder. He is definitely a shredder. Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You're like somewhere down here. Maybe like B at best. But, whew, man, she's a brand new 5-star unit. Who's like really cool and all that stuff. But man, she was a massive disappointment. Her fundamentals are still broken. Like they need to be they need some updating. They need some patching. I feel like Hoyoverse's way to fix it, in their eyes right now, is the constellations. Like, oh, put more money in, forehead. Yeah, I mean, her scaling does get fixed a little bit in the constellations, but her fundamentals are still overall like, why use her when you can use someone like Zhongli, Diona, Layla, her damage mitigation is just kind of questionable. And yeah, like, the golden form state doesn't last as long as her circle. It's like it only lasts for 9 seconds, right? Instead of the 12 or whatever. So it's like, why do that? What's wrong with that? And then her energy generation is not that great. Her power application is too slow for what it is. Yeah, her usefulness is dwindled down, unfortunately, because Hover says so, unfortunately. And yeah, I like, so many people are crying for her being fixed, and I'm like along with that, but I feel like, again, like Hoyoverse's way of fixing it is just constellations, and I think even then her constellations don't fix her fundamentals. It's just flawed. They need to overhaul her kit. I feel like what would make real sense in my eyes is that Dea, I've already talked about this, but Dea needs to have the risk and reward thing going on, where the more damage she takes, the more damage she can dish out in her burst, for example. So that's why I would like to call her the Archon of Pain, right? Like kind of like the Raiden Shogun of Pain, right? With Raiden Shogun, the more energy recharge you have, or the more energy you have, the more powerful your burst will be. So basically, the more bursts you can use, the more bonus damage you can dish out with Raiden Shogun's burst. And then she recharges those energy bursts again. So it's like a perpetual machine. Kind of the same concept here with Dea, if they are willing to do so, right? Just rotate out, take more damage, right? And then any damage that you take, it's just bonus damage for Dea. Like how hard could that have been, right? Like, I guess you could call her a constellation heavy character, but yeah, even then, it's just not all that useful in the end. It's just unfortunate that Dea is being treated like this right now. It was such a controversial thing, and I mean she's in a standard rotation now, so you could give her over time, but she's just another. She's kind of like equal with Chi-Chi, right? If you get her, it's so disappointing because like her damage mitigation is not that great. It's just kind of whatever. And her burst is a loss of DPS, more of a loss of DPS than Zhongli's meatball. So that's why she's like the lowest of B. But remember that she is a 5-star unit that has come out at this point. So that of itself is pretty bad in my eyes. At least with Chi-Chi, she can heal, and that's useful. But other than being some form of meat shield, is like I don't know if that's really her meat shield is all that helpful anyway. So I mean, is Barba actually more helpful than Dea? I guess in some areas, yeah. I guess, right? You know what? Maybe I should put Barba in B, and I would put her over Dea because I feel more use from Barbara than with Dea, in my eyes. Mika, oh man, another kind of a B unit because you absolutely have to build him at C6. Like, get him at C6. You have to actually get him at C6 from what I've been hearing. So that does require the most valuable resource, which is the Primo Gems, and just to make him reasonable. Right now, even at C0 or anything below than that, is honestly like why build him? You know, when you already have someone like Bennett, for example. Bennett is still very powerful in comparison to Mika, and you don't even need to build Bennett like all that much either with the constellations. Maybe at C1, maybe C2, I forget which specific one it was. By the way, Mika requires so much resource that it's like why, and he's only useful in the niche composition, which is the physical attack category. So that on top of all that would make him like B. But when you do get him right, SC6, yeah, he's useful with Eula, right? But yeah, it does require some building to do, but more useful than Dea, I would say, right? So, that's the thing here. Okay, so obviously we can't do Fave, we can't do Baizu, and I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be. So I guess it's like a placeholder or something. I don't know why this is here, but okay, whatever. So, from what I can see though, these two are gonna be potential like take this with an absolute grain of salt. But he's gonna be high A, and this guy is going to be maybe this up like somewhere here for sure. He's gonna be pretty crazy from what it sounds like. This is just a theoretical placement on these two anyway for Fave and Baizu. But overall, I mean, yeah, when you do think about it, most units are pretty usable, and you can beat the Spiral Abyss with these units. Like even Dea, right? Even though I bad mouth her quite a bit, and I guess if you're like super crazy, you can beat the Spiral Abyss with these units in your team, but these units for sure will help you through the Spiral Abyss, right? I guess even with Mika, I don't know with these units too, but like Traveler as well. Very like middle of the road, but yeah, he's still useful, right? The Travelers. But yeah, for sure, these units will be helpful. For sure, absolutely, these units will be helpful too, right? The S tiers and all that stuff. So yeah, like yeah, again, if you do look at it, there's just a couple, only a few units that are just like outright, they're just like broken or something to that extent. Maybe Shinyan could be low C, but it's not really saying all that much either. So I don't know. And you also have to remember that Amber is a story unit. You know, she comes in the story. You do get her for no matter what. Xinyan, you have to pull from the banner. So that, in a sense, I don't know. They're like tied, I guess, in a sense. But, yeah. It's really hard to say. But yeah. When it comes to that area. But, point being, this is my tier list. Are there too many units in A, perhaps? I don't know. That's just my little perspective on it anyway. And yeah, so what do you guys think of my tier list? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? My placements are okay or not okay? Give those comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps out, and I do appreciate it. So this has my tier list for Genshin characters in terms of performance. Not so much aesthetic and personality, blah, 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 all that stuff. Because all these characters are likable. So it's hard to say for me, like, who's the most likable, blah, 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 all that stuff. So they all got their reasons to be liked. It'd be entirely different for Dea, because Dea is really cool. But anyway, that's it from me, and thank you very much. I'll hope to see you all in the next one. Sean out.